communications equipment upgrades to be located at 13310 Hemlock Ridge Road. Whereas the proposed action involves the removing of 6 antennas and replacing them with 3 antennas on to an already existing mount on an existing tower, and whereas on September 9th, 2024, the Planning Board of the Town of Barry declared itself lead agency for purposes of seeker review of the proposed action, and whereas on September 9th, 2024, the Planning Board of the Town of Barry classified this action as an unlisted action, and whereas on October 14th, 2024, the Planning Board held a public hearing on the project and public comments were received by members of the public, and whereas on October 14th, 2024, the Planning Board made a negative declaration of the environmental significance of the purposes of the seeker, and whereas after review, the Planning Board has weighed the effects of the proposed action on health, safety, and welfare of the community, and now therefore the Planning Board
You can cut to the end. Most of the top is the same, but the seeker one is first.
Like I just did? Which ones do you want me to include on the front page?
Sorry, let me scroll back. Start at the 4th paragraph from the bottom.
Okay. Whereas the Planning Board has reviewed all submissions made by the applicant, considered comments made by the public and interested agencies, and taken the hard look at the potential environmental impact of the proposed action, and has caused to be prepared action or part 2 and part 3 of the short environmental asset form attached herein, and now therefore the Planning Board hereby adopts the affected SEAF part 2 and part 3, and therefore the Planning Board hereby finds that there will be no major or minor environmental impact associated with proposed action, and therefore the Planning Board hereby makes a negative declaration of the environmental significance of this proposed action. And what I already read on side 2, but we're waiting for a vote. Okay. We need a motion. Yes. We did the negative seeker last month, so the date should be changed for September 9th.
You can't really do it before the public hearing. Like if there were comments that should have, so okay. The date should be today, really. Yeah, well, usually I did the resolutions, but usually it's lead agency and declare unlisted, but not declare, just declare unlisted. And then today you would make the declaration, pos or neg.
So we'll declare the seeker as of today. Yes, sir.
Not you have to do your site plan approval. Yeah. You don't, yeah, so they basically said you don't have to, like, they're doing upgrades to an existing antenna, so they said, like, if they've already done it, like, for an antenna that's already built, they don't need to see them. They would just need to see new ones. But we still need to do, like, our site plan approval. But, yeah, you could skip the referrals on those.
So we need a motion on that. And we have a
speak there. Therefore, lost some food.
Okay. Thank you. And I have a second.
I'll second it.
Or,
All in favor?
Aye.
now therefore, the planning board does grant site plan approval for the proposed action.
We good with that?
A new motion for the approval.
You need a motion for the approval.
Yeah, because you just motioned for the negative declaration, so just
Oh, I thought we did that. I thought we just agreed. Okay.
yeah.
Now we need a
Seeker
motion for
first,
the-
then approval.
The proposed resolution.
The site plan.
We have a second. Thank you, Steve. There we go. Okay.
So that first motion was for a negative seeker?
Yep.
Correct.
Which we read last.
Okay. But that's not what was stated, but that's fine, as long as it's
Mistake. Thought we were going by what was last month.
Yeah, last month, well, I wasn't here, but last month should have been, like I said, declaring lead agency, and you list the type, but you still need to like give the public time to comment and stuff. So then you only can do a declaration that same day if it's a type 2 action, but this is an unlisted action. So it does have to be at 2 separate meetings, but all good now.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
Didn't know what the setbacks were.
So the addition is on the east side of the existing building.
And all we wanna do is put 3 bays on the back side of the building, be able to see them from the road or anything. That's all we'd be adding. Correct. Just gonna extend the length of it. I think. Toward that. Yep.
This is north. Addition,
Not the crosshatch section?
is the crosshatch section there? Okay.
Okay. Now we got it.
Yeah, so that little man door, right there, this way.
This way.
So it's this section here. Okay.
Okay.
Well, and you're worried about it. Setback from the east?
This side, west side, 22 feet. This side here.
Bridget, can you help us with that? This.
15 feet, I believe.
First side.
Correct, side.
Yep, side setback 15 feet. It's the requirements in 350-24F. So front 75 feet, side 15, rear 50.
Will there still be a driveway on the west side then? No driveway there. The driveway's gonna be on the east side?
Well, the wraparound driveway,
Yeah.
be able to get around the backside.
Okay. Cause the bay doors are on the north side, back side.
Inside, change the way.
Okay.
Do we have to worry about that under 350? Before. Three. Where it talks about the residential lot lines. He's in ag res, and we don't have a residential, we don't have a residential up there, so. we could get-
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
The setback would be 15 feet. And you got a special use permit now, right? Right. Okay, so you just have to modify your special use permit, bring your plans to us. Right?
Isn't that what this is?
You just gotta do a formal application, but there shouldn't be any problem. Yeah. Yep, that's not gonna mess you up if you come to the next meeting and we do the formal. Okay. You guys gotta remind, we don't have to do any public hearing for this, just a modification to the special use permit. Right?
Probably.
Have you bought the building permit? Have you bought the building permit? I just wondered if there was any comments from code enforcement.
I think it's just the application form, but if we need anything else, may I just reach out to the chairs and have them let you know, but I'll just so I can check on if your permit says anything specific with modifications or stuff, but
Yeah, I remember this one. He's got 5 acres. Yeah. Yeah. I was just wondering why this wasn't up there here, but that was supposed to be an outline. It's just the drive. You know.
You can bring him back.
It'd probably be better if you can. You might just draw the line where the addition starts on.
Yeah, we gotta figure that out. Okay. Okay. All right. Jared there. Jared is his name. Yep. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. Separation.
Oh, I wanted to go back to the last meeting we had the gentleman on Maple Street, who was asking about the construction of a new building there for agricultural repair and he had a question about the setback. This was the question because it was a little bit confusing. We have a potential applicant that is interested in building on Maple Street in the business district for the purpose of agricultural and motor vehicle repair. This type of business would require a special use permit. The question is, this statement from our zoning 350-24E3. Residential lot line. No commercial structure to be permitted within 50 feet of the nearest lot line for any residential district. I said, we don't have any residential district that we can find or map to verify. We only have planned development, then the business district. Could you please clarify the setback requirements for the parcel in question, which is the last lot in the general business district on the south side? The answer was the river.
I could read it. Oh yeah, go ahead. You found it.
It's 15 feet, I think, right? Can't remember all the spots.
Yeah, it's the setbacks we just basically talked about with him for 350-24. I don't know why the zoning code says the residential lot lines. Labella just did a new map for the comp plan, and there's no residential district. So yeah, that must be old from the code, and it just must not have fixed itself with the map. But because there's not a residential district, it's just kind of not applicable. But maybe something to flag in the future when you guys make revisions or something.
Okay, yeah, here's the front setback 75 feet. Those are the requirements. I didn't get his. Okay. Well, it looks like it's good. We just got.
I thought we came up with that. Didn't we come up with, he was gonna change the access and that was gonna give him enough room to. I don't blame him.
I think the asbestos question. You know, that's large.
Does anybody know how to get a hold of him so we can tell him? You do? I'll send it. You can give it to us.
A is old business, and that's land separation.
Okay, so we got the new subdivision law that was created. We got, everybody had time to look at it, I think now, so.
Yep.
I have a question that, Bridget. Anybody else got any questions, other questions on it?
I don't know if it's a question, it's a comment. I think this law is just what we asked for, except for it should be only for major subdivisions, not minor subdivisions. Can we just make it just for major subdivisions? There, that's the question.
Yes, you can. The board can choose. You can make the number different and not go between minor and major. I would just say from the legal standpoint, a lot of the reason why this law was to be created is because some people were sectioning off smaller parts of their property. So I'm not sure it's helping that problem, which is kind of why we started. But of course, if the board finds that that's not necessary to include those, then yeah, you can make that number higher. But yes.
Would this law actually help that if somebody wants to sell a sub-sized lot to their neighbor, and their neighbor is gonna probably add it onto their parcel anyway, this law would have no relevance there, correct?
No, because they would be subdividing their lot. They would be changing the lot. Correct? Am I understanding your question?
I'm just a little confused on how this law is actually helping what the original, one of the original questions we had was we didn't want these non-compliance lots all of a sudden getting deserted and being a burden to the town. I don't think is an issue anyway, but that was one of the issues that's coming up. I don't think this is the kind of law that would resolve that issue. And it just seems to me that it's a lot of law, and that's fine for a major subdivision, but for a minor subdivision, it's unneeded.
Well, hopefully you all got my email that I sent to the board, answering some questions, some feedback I got from the September meeting. I sent it September 17th, and it just, I can go through it again, but it kind of explains that for minor, it's really not that complicated. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at the application form. I mean, that right away people can write not available, and work with code enforcement. I think, from a code enforcement and from like a liability and all that standpoint, it's much easier to have every subdivision included, and for them to say this is minor, this is so basic, I handed my application form, I have the whatever, and you guys say, okay, yeah, the rest isn't really necessary, rather than having a lot of subdivisions go unsupervised. That's more difficult for Jared or for other people to kind of intervene and go after. So I still think it's better, it's cleaner, it's like legally and enforcement wise easier to include everyone and decide that a lot of it isn't necessary. And I know that the law itself is like very long, but I think hopefully applicants in the town find this way, but I think if they ask the chair, ask the code enforcement officer, ask us, we can always just point them in the right direction and say, oh yeah, just look at these sections, or oh, I just need this from you. And I mean, I think we can all help make their lives easier in that way too.
Well, I think minor subdivisions don't need all this law. I think you did Great work.
Okay. Well, thank you.
So I just want to make sure I understand this too. An example of a minor subdivision is an application for one lot being split into three, and each lot already has an access to a road or easement to get to a road, and the lots as proposed follow the code and the zoning district they are in. So that you wouldn't, that's a minor and wouldn't need to go through the process.
No, the minor still goes, it just goes through a shortened process. Yeah, and then we did say for for purely agricultural, I think it's 10 acres, that they don't have to go through the process. So that does help with farmers and farmland, and so they can stay out of the process. And New York State is, very right to farm law, so kind of giving that caveat for the agriculture is fine. I, double checked that, and that's fine as long as it's for purely agricultural reasons.
So that kind of, I mean, to get through unless somebody comes and says they want to build a subdivision in our town and put up 10 or 12 houses, that's probably the majority of what we're going to deal with is minor.
But the minor still has to meet all these, it can have to meet all these requirements. We can waive them, but they're still required to meet all the requirements.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, for the application submittal, not necessarily everything that you would decide on. But again, you guys have discretion to waive certain things. And if you kind of like read it, it just like really goes into detail about seeker and the public hearing and everything, which is just, as we've talked about, it's just language from the state that we have to go in. But it's really process stuff that's more for you guys. The actual application submittal is like a site plan. I mean, the biggest thing is the form and the survey. And if you're subdividing your lot, you're going to need a new tax ID. You have to get that survey regardless. So we're really not asking them for much extra work. If you want to go to the county and have new tax ID, I mean, some of this stuff is just, they'd be giving it to them, they'd be giving it to you. So if you really look at the forms, it's mostly like, have an actual engineer do the survey. It's like stuff you want to see on the survey. And if those things aren't applicable, if you don't have water on your survey, then it's just, nothing it's just like a site plan, then it just is what it is. So if you look at the actual documents, I know that it comes across overly burdensome, but if you do kind of break it down, it's really like, anyone coming in for a site plan, anyone coming in for any other permit, it's really not asking for a lot. And then again, like if they need a new tax ID, if their lot is different for assessing and stuff, so most of that stuff they're getting anyway.
Your minor, you don't want to read this. There's a lot of detail understands state, but if the minors truly were waiving all these things, we should make it less subdivision. You're trying to have a certain tax IDs, public water, yes or no. Whatever those short questions are, make it short thing instead of same application process as a major. And then looking at this major, like Mike just said, and go start doing the law thing.
But still requiring all those things just because we can waive them. I don't know how you would make that a shorter form because you don't know that before you waive them.
supposed to be some that aren't applicable. It's under 4. They should have the same thing.
There isn't though.
But that's what
I'm not trying to,
keep it simple and kind of blocks out your know what he has to do.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think if you look at the application form, so if anyone comes in and says, hey, I'm curious in a subdivision, and whoever is back there, if Lee happens to be back there, sorry to hand and say, this is the application form. I mean, it has, you know, normal information, and then it just asks for stuff that's on a plat that is all typical in any plat you'll see. And then there's a section that says attached to this application are the following, in quotes, not every document may be applicable. And so that's just asking, are you also attaching a site plan? Are you also asking for a special use permit? Do you have a stormwater pollution prevention plan? I think most people will know that that's not applicable to them, or can ask and say, oh, you're just dividing 2 lots. No. And then it's just asking for a written description of the project, which is typical, and that's really it. The application form includes everything on it, and I don't read this as difficult to follow or asking for a lot. It, again, not to keep going back to the site plan, but some people come for site plan approval and it is for a kind of smaller project, but they have to under the law. I think most people kind of go through the site plan law and say, oh, well, I know that's not for me, or, hey, do I have to do this full environmental assessment form, or can I do the short one? I think, like, you know, going through these applications won't be as difficult as you may think it is. And I guess we could ask for 2 different applications, but I'm not entirely sure what we would take out.
I don't think you can do that with this law, because they both require all the same questions. Just because we can waive doesn't mean you don't ask it.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't think that they would be different in the law. And then I will just say, I know it was in the email, but there have been talks about subdivision applications coming through, so I know there is a little bit of hope that you guys will recommend it or recommend it with changes, so the town board can kind of get started on their process.
Yeah, this gotta go to the.
Yep, correct. So yeah, you could recommend as drafted, you could recommend with the subdivision definition being different. You can, you know, recommend with changes or modifications, or not recommend, but hopefully since, you know, we've been having these conversations about it since I think June, that could move forward.
I would recommend subdivisions and put the difference between major subdivision and minor subdivision definitions. That's where I would go, but that's just me personally.
Major and minor are in the definition, so you mean taking out minor?
Legislation major.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying.
So I guess there would be a little rewriting, but not much.
Subdivision. They get through, I don't see why break it out. The application that they go through is the same out of there, if questions.
They'd come to us, wouldn't it?
Usually, when someone submits an application, it might go to the code enforcement officer first
But
to
then-
make sure it's complete. So
but
they
then
would.
it comes to us, correct?
Correct. Yep. Once you get a completed application, but it would go to the code enforcement officer first.
Oh, I see the difference, but then they lump them all together.
What would be the difference? Because you can waive whatever you want, even in the major. You can say we don't, therefore, we still have the right to waive something on a major or something. But you send it back and give a, okay, to the, back to the planning board, or you go to the town board, or back to the county. Minors, we don't, let them say final approval simultaneously.
Right. So if you look at section 15 of the law, it goes into like final subdivision. So it's just asking for more official documentation, any revised seeker if necessary. It's just kind of a more formal application form. It's the process that the state recommends and kind of just drives easier with seeker. So kind of doing the minor, you can look. Someone would give you a preliminary plat, and they may not change anything other than the date when they give you the final plat and whatever information you need from them, or if not, they would just come back on another meeting, do the seeker stuff. That's just what the state finds. But if it's a major subdivision with 5 or more lots, there's likely you guys are going to have some questions, comments, some back and forth. So a minor is someone would be able to come to the application, and instead of making them go back, or if it was acceptable to you, you could sign off. They could just use that one, and you could agree, or make changes live during the meeting and include that. They wouldn't have to come back. So it is a quicker process for minor subdivisions. course, up to seeker as well, and that process.
Well, maybe I'm reading the definition between the minor and the major. And maybe I read this wrong before. So you're classifying a minor as not more than 4, so that's 3. Is it, or is it 2 to 3? Am I missing that?
Correct. Yeah, 5 and more is major.
What's a minor? Minor is just 4.
Up to 4.
So 1 is minor.
Will there be 2 lots? Correct.
Makes
It's
2. So
the number is about the number of lots.
a lot makes it a minor subdivision, correct?
Correct.
That's just a clarification.
Correct. Correct. Yes. Yes. Thanks for clarifying. It is the lot numbers, but the way the definition is also about the roads, and just being in conflict with any plans. But the state, and they do see as new roads, making it more major if you're, adding not driveways or anything, but actual like private roads, or adding the road, because that may also just involve other agencies in the state. Any other questions, thoughts, comments?
My own, back to the minor subdivision definition. It just seems like if somebody wanted to sell a lot, whoever, build a house or whatever they want to do with it, that it shouldn't be a subdivision. Have to come in front of us and go through all these. That's why I thought this would be better just for a major subdivision. It's the one lot that I want to sell you 5 acres. Why would they have to come in front of the planning board and meet all this criteria just to make that simple sale? That
I understand what you're saying, and you guys can change the definition. I guess my response is, if you are still sectioning off 5 acres of your lot, but it's not the entire lot, that person still has to get a new tax ID and still go through that process. So it is better to keep the town involved, but you can change the definition. Right now, it says a division of any parcel of land into 2 or more lots. You could change it into 3 or more lots and just have minor be 3 to 4.
How did the Grange happen? I wasn't here.
wasn't a subdivision lot.
And you split 1 into 2, and we ended up with a problem lot at the again because there was no oversight or lack of oversight. In my opinion, that's
But
what.
I don't think there was what would have been the solution? You can't sell it?
They sold it, so now it's attached. So, I digress. Where's it?
And it's working, whatever they did, I mean, it's working, being.
Now it is, yeah. For a while, it wasn't working.
Fortunate.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier, but again, we can change the definitions if the board wants to. It's your recommendation. But again, that is why this started. It was because of just a two lot. And wanting to make sure that didn't happen again, and there was some oversight and enforcement. Um, so the board, yep, if you look at the application form, it's the survey. Most of the requirements are on the survey, which are going to be part of the survey. Then this application form, um, a, a written description of the project, which is probably going to be part of this form if it's, that easy. And seeker, they're going to need at least a short environmental assessment form. I think we ask everyone to do a full, so they're not redoing it, but we could still classify it as what the board finds appropriate, and seeker is part of all of them. It asks for the form, asks for other things like site plan and special use in case that's part of it. But if you are just selling it to someone and that someone is doing something else, that's a whole, separate thing. This is just a reminder to people they could be doing it at the same time if they so chose.
But they still would have to go through that process and come in front of us to do that. That's right now, they don't have to. You can sell a lot to your neighbor and he can build a house or whatever, as long as it's compliant, everybody's happy.
But yeah, I would say bare minimum application is going to be this form, the plat, and a seeker form filled out.
So your next step, right? You should direct me to the board to make a modification, right? Oh, I'd like to, my take, personally, I would make 2 lots, not a, no, that wouldn't be a minor or a major subdivision. 3 lots would be a minor, or above 4 would be a major. Right.
I got one question about that. If we, so that would void the logic of 1 lot splitting or 2 lot splitting. Or just 1 lot.
1 lot splitting makes 2, so that, gotta take that into account. So it's basically splitting 1 lot.
So this law would take effect when one is split more than 2.
Right. No, 3 or more.
3 or more.
Which takes the whole thing out that started all this. But
I think it does, because I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying that does take away what, we started
Right.
this because we're trying to get rid of lots that were not accessible and all those things.
Well, that
right?
was something that came up, that was a reason.
Yes.
So, correct. That's a possibility, but has it ever happened? It could. Lots of things could.
Well, I think the spirit.
Sure.
How do you stop the person from buying a lot, do, by second lot? Yeah.
Oh, there's in the legislation in here, you can go back, and if you sold a lot last year, it counts as two this year, if you're just selling one. No, there's no time limit. It's from when this begins. If I read it right, correct, Bridget?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you were asked to do, you're not sitting here asking for something. You said it was good, and we take it back. Why we're not sitting here talking about this. You know what I mean? What the whole intent was, it wasn't for the multiple summit. We don't have it.
Well, those are gonna be the real issues.
They will.
Right.
A single. So if we make the modification, we're gonna reject it. They're the lead. They can take every phase to reject.
Correct. They are the body that approves the law and theoretically could make changes. You are recommending.
So modify it, they might not like it. Don't send it. That's our options, right?
Same discussion. It's
Yeah, it's part of the zoning code, so they're not going to proceed without your recommendation. That's the process as you guys send it to them. So I guess that's an option, but they would not. For local law, yeah, if it was substantial edits, they probably would kick it back for your review. If it was an edit such as a number, I don't think they would need to kick it back. Unless they wanted to for your opinions, but so they could potentially, but maybe would not have to.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Right.
So that carries. It's submitted.
Hey, it's all right. I don't hold it against anybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Okay, where's
Do you need me for any other business?
We might. I'm trying
Okay,
to, I'm going back.
Comprehensive plan?
It's the comprehensive plan. So everybody got the draft. And I started reading it myself. It's pretty long. So I was wondering what is it true that the planning board's gonna make a recommendation at some point to the town board to adopt the comprehensive plan? Is that the idea?
Well, back up, the idea started with the planning board hiring somebody to do comprehensive.
Yep.
Once they come up with the draft, they feel obligated for it to come back to the planning board, since the planning board requested that
Yep.
from the committee.
Yep.
from the committee. And the planning board gets the option to go review this, see how well they did,
Yep.
and mark it tonight. Review it, mark it tonight, with any comments or changes that they would want the committee to consider.
Okay.
We also sent it to the zoning board. The zoning board is supposed to do the same thing.
Okay.
And then they go back together. I forget the rest of the actual steps that,
There's a public hearing or something
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I forget.
that your committee's having, correct?
Yeah, they're doing all this. That's why it's here tonight, is for our comment. And this is the product of what we recommended to be done by the committee. It's now back.
Yep. I guess what I was getting at was we're gonna have another chance after they review the questions and possibly make changes.
This
The
is our
comprehensive
chance.
plan committee will submit it again to the planning board?
No. This is our chance to say what we want
Okay.
changed or not.
Okay.
I recommended that we do that on a hard copy. Somebody dictate whatever changes, if we want changes done. So that it gets handed back to committee as the planning board's comments
Yeah.
on this.
The one thing about it, this is my opinion, maybe not everybody agrees with me, but the comprehensive plan was developed by a consultant in 1996. And it was developed in conjunction with the Village of Albion. That's how it came to be in 96. And then this board, between the years of 2020, 2015 and 2021, 17, modified what we had previously, which was, again, a combination of the village and the town together from 96. We modified that, and then we got that passed through. Now we're going through what I feel like is a pretty thorough review of what we had, and it's changed, probably going to be changed again for the better by a professional who's putting it together, and a board that's the committee. So my opinion, I feel like it's, personally, I need a little more time to look at it. But that's my opinion.
We can take all the time we want. I mean, that was the No rush on anything. We're gonna take a couple of years to do that. We did it last time. But I don't think the company we hired bought into taking a couple of years to do it.
No.
They're in it and get out.
I was wondering if they'd be okay with another month. That's what I was wondering.
I'm sure they will.
I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
They're gonna push back.
Well, I had a question for you because and I might have missed something here, but when we originally went with the proposals that we did, there was a big section on ag law that we were gonna apply for the grant that was different. That go by what we said?
I don't know.
Because that was one of our, there was two grants available, one that was through ag, was pretty much a given, and the second one was a lot of it, and it was pretty much, you wouldn't get it, it was very rare to get it. But then there's gonna be a whole section which isn't in here, which makes me think that,
Now, there was, to get the ag land protection grant, you had to come up with a plan and a committee for the town of Berry for ag land protection. But then none of that happened, so that grant didn't happen, I'm sure. The grant happened? Yep. Well, one of the requirements of the grant was to form. No, ag land protection committee. There was two grants.
we wanted to. Okay, it's just different than what, not develop what the other consultant talked about if you did it. Like there'd be a whole section dedicated to.
That was one of the requirements of the grant.
Correct. That's all. But again, and I'm trying to, it's hindsight, but there was more forward thinking, like of a discussion of what the money from projects that we approved is going to be used for. That doesn't speak to that. Yeah, I mean, it's just a general. I'm not.
As far as I know, it never came up in conversation.
Okay.
Focus on getting plan together.
I would like another month. I mean, I want to know the answer to the question.
There's no way that we can go through that whole book tonight and decide that that's good. We should have had it ahead of time. I don't.
We did.
Yeah.
Had it 2 weeks ago.
Who had it 2 weeks ago?
All of us.
Well, if you guys, if we just need a motion then to let it lag for a month so we get more time to look at it if everybody's. Okay. Need a second for that?
Second that.
All in favor?
I'll have to abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Then, so while we're talking about it, not on the agenda, but our next meeting is on Veterans Day. Lee brought that to my attention, so we got to figure out if we want to change that or if we want to have it on Veterans Day like we're having it now on Columbus Day. Talking about the comprehensive plan committee? Well, supposing we come back with some comments that we have that would require them to get back together create another draft.
They're not gonna get back together until they receive the comments from all the parties that they sent this out to.
What's the,
They're not gonna do it, they'll have to cancel it.
okay, so it's gonna get pushed a month then.
Everything. They'll be waiting for us.
Okay.
That's the last I knew, what the plan was.
Yeah.
For, the public hearing is on the 18th of,
They can't have it without having.
right,
comments.
and I have not heard from Barbara to get it advertised in the paper or on the website yet.
Push everything. Push everything. Yep. Luckily, they haven't put any advertising out yet, but we're waiting for.
No, because like I said, I'm waiting for the wording to come from her.
How'd the zoning board give any comments yet?
They haven't met, they'll be meeting next
Next
Monday.
week? All right.
George had it all mapped out. The last meeting we had. I don't have it memorized. He had all the dates. And I think we were aware.
Is there anything that you, when you worked on it, that you didn't agree with? That
Yeah, there was, I have a comment. I thought you were asking me.
Because you're more intimate with it than we are. You know where things go sideways.
Overall, excellent job. There was, as you know, we had a survey done as part of this, public survey. But pretty good response from that. And it was understood when we did the comprehensive plan that the survey was like an addendum to this, something that goes with it. But that it was not to be used necessarily for forming this. And I took exception, and some others did too, that it was left in there, that they used the results from, or they put in results for, from the survey in here, and they only did it in one particular spot. Only.
Green energy?
Yeah. That's the only time in this whole plan that they made any reference to a survey. It was for that. It wasn't used anywhere else, like, say, for the parks, okay? There's plenty of comments about the park and survey about how many people actually use the park. And it's like minuscule, like 2% of the people in the town use the park, and we keep putting money into the park. Well, there's no comment in there saying that, you know, we have all these plans, how we're gonna expand the park, but the fact that only 2% of the population even use it. You know. But, which would be something to put in there if they're gonna use the survey. The only time they made any comment about the survey in here is for the green energy. Which is a negative, you know. Because they made a statement saying we have these windmills and we have these solar, and the majority of the town is opposed to it. And we have battery law, and even more people are opposed to that. But we have zoning for all those.
Right.
You know, the town. That's what's in our plan. put a comment, there's a, I'd have to find it for you in here where they cite the survey.
Natural and cultural resources, survey results and public comment was at, agriculture.
A lot of your about.
I'd rather hear.
Yeah, yeah, please.
Website?
No, I mean, it's too bad.
I don't know, really, what in here is, survey results and public comments. They get right in here. In your comprehensive.
Page are you, G? Survey results, public comment, cited.
This is under the renewable energy that I'm looking at.
See under A, B. Yeah. There was a motion during the meetings that comprehensive, the public survey would be kept separate.
I agree with you. I see exactly what you're saying. Either they should put it on all of them or not put it on any. Right, that's just common sense, like you can't pick and choose because, you know, if they want it in there, they gotta follow. Cause you're right, it doesn't have it under.
It doesn't have under church.
Yeah.
Not for different negative comments. About it. Put all that money into it already.
So those are my comments. I didn't realize they had as many as they did. So you pointed them out now, Gene. Either added those.
I think they got added. The last copy I saw didn't have them.
So that, I remember it coming up is that was the only place that they even cited it. But apparently they've added a bunch more to make it more balanced. Good. They're doing a good job then.
vote on whether we're taking a,
Vote on delay until next month.
in,
Okay, all in favor? John abstained, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next is the training. The town's been, under some heat on the training, so we've been, directed to make sure everybody gets 4 hours. There's 3 training events that are taking place coming up. I think Lee emailed them all to you. But one is one in Niagara County. There's the sexual harassment one, and then there's the Monroe County one, or Genesee Valley one. Can you resend those again to everybody? Make sure there's 3 opportunities. So the next one is
You asked if you could be excused.
I'm sorry. I forgot about that.
Oh, that's fine. I just, in case you guys need me, but I can stay the whole time.
Yeah,
I'm
I think we're
sorry.
good.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank,
Forgot
thank
about
you.
that.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, and then lastly is the, make sure I have something else. Oh, before we go to the county planning board, there was a fee schedule that was passed by the town board based on our recommendation, and Lee, can you send that to everybody just so they have it, if you could? Was it based on our recommendation?
well, you made the recommendation, I just wondered if,
Most of it was based on your recommendation.
You know, back to the training a minute. Do you know if the town has a workplace violence plan in place? Yeah, because part of the workplace violence training requirement is that we are trained by the town as to what we do in this environment if somebody comes in here acting violently. Follow me? It's specific for town employees, and Sean's, he's characterizing us as town employees, so that's why we have to have the training. Assuming, right?
Oh, it's required by the state.
Yeah.
So, I know we have a sexual harassment training manual per se.
Okay.
I'll have to look for the other one.
Okay. Well, the training's coming up. The only opportunity I could find for that training is that one that you guys sent us, so.
Yeah. 20, I am pretty sure it's the 28th. The combined one this time.
I guess the other thing we didn't resolve is the next meeting, because we want to have it on Veterans Day? Do you want to have it on another day? Anybody got any opinion on that?
Veterans Day's fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Gary, you got a problem with that? Okay.
All right, so we'll have that on the 11th then. Okay. Okay. Anybody got anything else? go over the county if not. The county planning board was on September 26th, and there is some Niagara County training coming. That was not on one of your emails, I don't think, right?
I get them and I send them off.
Yeah. I think there's another training opportunity in Niagara County coming because the county planning board mentioned that. But the first referral was the house on the southwest corner of Platten Road and Town Line Road in Yates. And it's a 4-bedroom house that they're gonna make into a farm worker housing facility to house 6 or 8 people. It's gonna be a 1-year term. It's for Plummer Orchards, and that was approved. There was some question because there's a historical marker in front of the structure. But that was approved for a 1-year term for farm worker housing. The next referral was in the town of Shelby, across from the restaurant on Route 31, the Mariachi restaurant. On the south side of the road, there's a farm there right next to the creek, and they're going to put up a new cell tower. I guess I don't know if it's a cell tower. It's more of a broadband tower. And they're going to attach it to the existing silage silo that's there. The goal is to serve mostly Ricky Apartments, which is on the north side of Route 31. And they did a structural analysis of the tower, but it was interesting. They're going to attach it to the tower. Attach it to the silo, I mean. And then next was the yeah. They did a structural analysis on the silo to make sure it would hold it, I guess. That's what was reviewed. So the next one was the town of Barry. The zoning board had a referral to the planning board for ground mount solar on Drake Island Road extension. And it's on the north side of the Drake Island Road extension, west of the entrance to old Trippy Foods facility there. And it had 2 referrals. One was for area variance, and the other was for a use variance. The area variance was approved, and the use variance was denied because it didn't pass the 4 tests that were required to allow a use variance. So the town can overrule the county's decision by having a majority +1 at the town level when it comes to the town. Yep, ground mounted solar at a house. Yep, looked like it in the overhead. No, the zoning board referred it to the county planning board. It's actually gonna come back to the zoning board. Yeah. And then the last thing they talked about was the hazardous waste day, which was funded, I asked them how it was funded. It's interesting, it was funded half by a grant and half by the county's garbage collection fees, but they collected 7,000 tires, 3,000 from residents and 4,000 from towns and villages, 700 gallons of antifreeze, 3 times the number of batteries compared to last year, 2 times the number of fluorescent light bulbs compared to the year before, 1.5 times the number of propane canisters, and used oil was still the number one waste they brought to that. So. You know, the law was that there's supposed to be a 3-year term in the town law, but the application only asked for 1 year, and somebody on the county planning board piped up and said they only asked for 1 year, only give them 1 year. Which I was surprised by that too. Nobody from Plummer Orchards was there, and they asked the zoning officer about it, and he supported the same logic that they only asked for 1 year, and I thought so too. So.
That night on the zoning meeting, Bridget, our attorney, was here for that. They can override that.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we zoning first?
Because both of the issues were related to zoning, the area variance and the setback. Too close to I think it was too close to the road, and it was in the front of the house. Our zoning says it can't have one in front of the house. That was what the area variance was for. Pretty quiet over there.
Is there any action there, or is there? So somebody's living there or not?
Yeah.
I thought she said like her family was gonna come occupy some of it or something. It was just.
Oh, there's Old Bay back there and then the back.
So you sold off some of it.
Remember that? No, it's a woman.
What do you do?
I remember they're sitting on it, like they were saying there was, she was gonna.
There's no house there, it's a commercial kitchen. Everything needed TLC. Last time
too.
I remember that.
Which is.
I haven't been back there since we had the part, the town had the party there.
Oh, totally different.
That was a lot of years.
Yeah.
Outside of drug. You do it. It's pretty impressive. I know how long.
Did you go to the town event there? Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know who mows it?
We did a lot of work over there when Mr. Trippy first built it. Back in the, must have been the nineties, right? Early nineties? Yeah.
Could even have been late eighties.
Mr. Trippy used to fly into the airport.
Yeah.
Pine Hill Airport. Yeah. Yeah.
Next time, when I drove in there, there was trees like that.
Was it really?
And the barracks there. Been there a long time.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
We were just talking, they sold some of the land on the east side of it too.
Chew. He has like 58 acres and then they sold all the rest. She has 62 acres. She has a field class. Oh, yeah, Big Iron. That's the Big Iron Farms. That's they bought all the rest.
So their workplace violence and harassment training is October 28, 5 to 6 p.m.
Okay, need a motion for adjournment then?
We adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nope.
Bills just ran the kickoff back for a touchdown.
Yeah.